A power steering rack is found on your vehicles today with power steering, and if you don't even know what it looks like, and most of us don't, I'll show you what it looks like here in a minute and how to change it. It takes about 2 hours if you know what you're doing, if you've done it before. If you don't, give yourself 3 or 4. You can't rush it. It's a little bit complicated, but it's not that bad. It's something that you can do. And a garage one time quoted me $900 to change out a power steering rack, and that included the price of the rack, which is $200 or $300. So you'll save yourself a good dollar if you just spend a couple afternoons even and do it yourself and just keep at it. This job is on a 95 Explorer. You won't need to have a 95 Explorer to do this. Every one will be similar. I'm going to go through some of the tools that you'll need. I don't say I list every one, and I don't necessarily claim that I remembered every step to show you that you have to do, but this is a good general walk through it. If you find something a little complicated, just look at it, study it. It'll come to pass. And if I missed a wrench or something someplace, that it's just because I didn't write everything down, or it slipped up on me, but I'm going to try my best. We had a hoist, and we also had air wrenches. So those things are good, but they're not necessary. You will need 1/2-inch sockets up to 24 metric or equivalent in standard. You'll need pliers for a couple of clamps you have to undo. We used long needle nose. They were good, but you can use other pliers. You'll need a pipe wrench or crescent wrench. You'll need a wrench for the tie rod nut, whatever size it is on your vehicle. It varies from vehicle to vehicle, so you'll figure that out easy enough. If you don't know what a crowfoot wrench is, we're going to show you, because they work really well for doing the pressure line and unhooking it. Of course, once you clean the old lines out, kind of check, blow air through them or something, see that there's nothing in the old lines. You'll put them back on when the new steering rack is in, and put new power steering oil back in the reservoir in the pump. And after you complete the change out and you got it oil back in it, slowly turn the steering wheel. Have the wheels off the ground is good, and just rotate your wheels from right to left real slow until you see all the air out of the reservoir and the steering is smooth. The symptoms of a bad steering rack can be your car or your truck wanders on the road. All of a sudden it just wants to take off and steer like on its own. Or it can be like all of a sudden it won't turn. It kind of locks up for a little bit and it's hard to turn to the left or the right, and then it may run good for a while, and then a while later you'll notice, well, what's going on here? Why is it kind of hanging up? Those are just a couple of the symptoms. There can be others, but that's generally what you'll find. And if you look at the power steering oil, you'll find that it can be black as well. Of course, another telltale sign is if you crawl underneath and look at your steering rack, you'll find that there's oil dripping and sweating and it's quite dirty underneath, and that'll tell you that your power steering rack needs to be fixed up. Let's get started. One of the tricks of changing something that you haven't changed out before is to buy the new one. And then you can look at it and you can see, like, here's the caps. That's your tie rod end, that's your steering connector, your other tie rod end. They put the bushings that go in here. So these bushings go in here, and they just set them there for now. And we're going to be taking off this side as we get started. And as I go through it, I'll try my best to explain it to you so you can understand how and why we do what we do as you change your steering rack. Underneath the vehicle, you look, and here it's sitting. That's your sway bar there. This here is the transmission cooler on this particular vehicle, and the transmission hose for the cooler is flopped over it. This here is just part of your frame, and sitting right in there is this strange looking thing, and that is your steering rack, and there's little tubes that run on it. These are the brackets for the bushings that I told you about on the previous picture. You might have to watch this video a couple of times, and you'll catch on to it. And as well, look at your own. Like I say, I will do my best, but I'm sure there will be something I slip up on along the way that you just have a look and figure it out, because I'm going to give you the basic what to do. How much more basic can this be? Start by taking your tires off. Undo your little cover here. Underneath there are the lug nuts on this vehicle, on this Explorer. Pop that off. Take your wheels off of each side. That's how you can start this. So I just kicked the camera. Sorry. Bear with me. Undo your tie rod nut. Pull your cotter key out. Undo your tie rod on both sides. And your tie rod's going to go into the boot. Now you'll recognize that because you saw it on the other picture. It's your tie rod arm. There's a hose clamp on the end. You'll undo that because we're going to remove the driver's side or the left side. And so you'll undo that little clamp right there with your needle nose pliers. Here is your tie rod nut right here on the side. We've undone the tie rod nut, and a good way to break this loose is just smack on there with a hammer. If you can, sometimes 2 hammers work good, but you don't have to give it, you know, deadly blows, but just give it a few good raps, and all of a sudden the tie rod will come loose, and you just pop it up and it's out. What you'll do next is remove your tie rods off of your steering rack, because it comes without your tie rods. So you back the nut off just a tiny bit, then you give revolutions and you unturn your tie rod and you count. One side here was 30 turns, so then when we put it back together, we put it back 30 turns. That'll bring it right up to the nut, and you cinch it and you're back to where you need to be. You'll put this nut on your new tie rod as well. So do both sides like that. The other side was 23 turns, so you know, don't let that fool you. So this side was 30, the other was 23, and that's where the wheel alignment was. We took it to a shop just to have it checked to confirm that the alignment is okay. This here is your front sway bar. Right in here is your transmission cooler, and we're going to start undoing that next. A little hard to see right there what I'm pointing at, but these are your lines. I'm trying to show you. This picture's a little bit blurry, sorry about that, but you've got your lines, and this is your the one we're going to put the crowfoot wrench on that I'll show you later. So you're going to start undoing your lines that go into your new steering rack. So you've got return lines, pressure lines. Up here is a return line. Just go in with your needle nose pliers, like I said, is what we use. Slide it off, slide the hose off. And then we're going to be taking these lines off. And this is where we use the crowfoot wrench. What a crowfoot is you have your ratchet, your extension, and this flat little, well, I don't know what you call it, end of a wrench, just slides on the end of your socket, and you can only give it like quarter turns or half turns. And you turn it quarter turn, lift it off, put it on, quarter turn, because you're coming in from on top. So you can see the ratchet's pointing down, and this here is flat on the bottom. So that's a really good little wrench to have to get at this pressure line. I'll show you a picture of this wrench later by itself. So undo your pressure line and your return line on your steering rack. Next we go underneath with an air ratchet, and we're going to undo the bolt that goes through this bushing on the steering rack. I pointed that out in the beginning. I said this is where the bushings go. Well, these are the bushings on the old one. You come underneath with the socket appropriate size and undo it. Do each side. Here is the bolt. That's from the top. Here's where your bracket for your transmission cooler bolted on with 2 nuts on each side, 1 nut here, 1 on the other. Then this here went into your, on top of your steering rack bushing, and that's the little blocker stopper. Then the bolt goes through. Then at the bottom of your frame there's this washer, and this big nut goes on the bottom. But if you just watch how it comes apart, you'll see, you know, how you need to line yours up and what was on the bottom, and it's simple. Don't let it scare you. I'm trying to point at the steering rack nut in here. That can give you a hard time. It's a flat side, so it only fits one way, but you're gonna need to line up and get at that little tiny, I don't know what that is, number 10 or 12 nut in metric, so it'd be 3/8 or 7/16. And we go in for that with a long extension and a little swivel socket to get on that. Now, this here has to be pointing in a direction that you can get the socket on that steering collar nut. So what you do is you're going to have to move the tie rods back and forth. You push them by hand because the wheels are off, so you can't turn the wheel. And if you just push real hard, all of a sudden you'll see it'll turn that. And if it's the wrong way, then you go back and you play with it, and then all of a sudden you get a good shot at getting that nut off. And all you do is loosen it, and then you lift the steering collar off this power steering rack. We're coming in on another angle, and here I'm pushing the tie rod, because that turns the power steering, which goes up to your steering wheel, your steering rack. So when I push this, it moves that, and it gave a better position for the socket to get at it. So you're going to have to do that as well, is push and pull on this to turn that bolt so it comes into view, so you can undo it and release the steering connector to the power steering rack. Put your hand up in there, lift it off, and it'll just pop off. And we're doing some more with the hoses, and you'll be spending a little bit of time in there. You can see we've just got the lines laying loose there. And guess what? We're coming close. Next we take off the sway bar, 2 bolts on each side, because this has got to be moved so allow you room to take out the power steering rack. So we just let it hang, just undo the 2 bolts on each side on the frame for your sway bar, and it'll fall out of the road. You can see it's dropped a bit. Now we're going in here and we're starting to move this around because we got the bolts out through the bushings, and we slide it to the side, and we're going to take off the arm over here for the tie rod. In the beginning of the video I showed you the tie rod with the clamp on the boot that was on the driver's side. Well, we've removed that, and now we're getting ready to undo the tie rod on the driver's side only. So we've unturned it off the where it hooks up onto the wheel, and now we're going to unturn the tie rod on the other end where it goes into the steering rack. It's not that complicated. The next picture should help. There it is. So this is the tie rod, and that's where the boot was covering all of this up. The boot went from here to there. So you take the boot off, and that's what you see. You got your little joint there, and it goes into the end of your power steering rack. So you need to unturn that. So right here is a big nut. We can use a pipe wrench, or if you have a proper standard size wrench or a crescent wrench, unturn that. To get at it, it might fight you. So once again, you may have to push and pull on this just as you did to turn the nut for your steering, to get that steering bolt so you could get at it. Now to get at this here moves this way when you turn your wheel. You turn your wheel, it goes that way. You turn your wheel back, it goes this way, and it slides back and forth. Well, to get your wrench on here properly, you have to push and pull on this tie rod or from the other side till you get it in position where you can get a wrench on it. It's just common sense. Now you can just see the threads right there. That's where it was threaded into. That's what we just took off. And there's the nut that you can get your wrench on, or a pipe wrench, and take it out. Now we're sliding the steering rack, the old steering rack, to the side because we took the tie rod off the other side so that we could remove it. Otherwise it was too long, we couldn't get it out. So we undid the tie rod. Now we pushed that cylinder back so we got the end piece out of the road, and we're going to move it up over the dropped sway bar, and it'll pop right out. There it is. Now this is your new one. What you'll have to do is change out your valve and your pressure line, and change out your return line. There, that's the steering knuckle there. You can see where the bolt goes in there, kind of like a ball joint. Just slides and then pops off. So you'll have to put that back on. Now this is the new one, so once again we had to take and cut this boot off because we're going to be undoing the tie rod that goes into the end. Then once it's in the car or the van or the truck, then you put the tie rod back on the end of your steering rack, and you put your boot on, and then you screw the tie rod on the very end there, your 30 turns or 23 turns, lock it down with the nut. You put the new nut on there, and that's back in your ride. There you can see we've got it off the new one now. We've got the boot off, the tie rod unscrewed, and as I said, this here will move back and forth. If you're having trouble in the vehicle, don't forget to push from the other side and push it out till you can get enough room. And there we go, it's going back in. Working on it, getting everything lined up. You can see right there, that's where it is. We had to push it out a little bit. Once we put it, we had it sucked in. Once we got it in the Explorer, then we pushed it so it came out so we could get a wrench in here. We're tightening it up. And then we used a big bar to position the bushings in that, and then also to lift our sway bar to put it back in place. Putting on the steering knuckle, all of this oil is from that sway bar leaking, so it makes a real mess when they start to leak. And we're going to hook up some more hoses. Of course, you'll know where they all go because you'll see where they bend and how they fit. Putting back the transmission cooler. Now we've put back our long bolts through the bushings, and our new steering rack arm is tightened down, and we're dropping the bracket over, and that's where the nuts will go on, and one there and one over here, and that holds the transmission cooler down. And then you'll do the lines for that over here as well. A little bit blurry, but you can see this is where we're going to be putting more back on. This here is a different shot of the crowfoot wrench. We're going to use that now to tighten that bolt, the pressure line. And so once again, you see, just put it on and tighten it a little bit at a time. Hey, guess what? We're just about at the end of this. All you do now is you turn this on, you count your turns back, put your tie rod back on, put it in the wheel, line your wheel up, drop it down, tighten your nut real tight, put on your lock nut on your tie rod, put the cotter key through, put your tire on, and you have just changed a steering rack and saved yourself probably $500 to $700, and you'll feel really good that, hey, I changed my steering rack. Let me know how it goes, and thanks for watching. Bye for now.